afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Karen Mikowski, aka Butterfly Karen. Welcome. So welcome back. So welcome to the Nancy Guthrie case. This is the reading. This is my author's reading. This is, I'm hoping I don't get emotional, because this, obviously, you know, a lot of people know Nancy Guthrie was abducted from her home on the 1st of February 2026 at early hours of the morning from her bed. So now, obviously, I've worked on this case as a parapsychological investigator, so that's my full collection. There's 3 volumes right now, which is still missing the perpetrator's movement and Nancy's location. Right now, Nancy's location is going out to the public today. Obviously, I gave a month to state police just to sort of, you know, look into the Nancy's location, you know, to read the sort of investigative report, the report book, and just see what see if they could use their resources, see if it's something they, you know, could look into. But I haven't heard anything back as of today, so I'm still not really aware of what's going on that side of things. I mean, it's still an investigation, so all I can really do is pretty much do what I've already done and just, you know, keep the awareness going. And obviously, if there's any more insights come through regards to when I'm connecting to Nancy, that's a little bit different. There may be a 4th volume, but I'm just waiting now patiently, like everybody else is, just to sort of see what develops from the case, and just what develops from the case, and hopefully we can find Nancy soon and bring her home. So it's a very, you know, became a very mainstream case, as we know. I don't really want to sort of get into the, I've expressed my opinion on the internet for that sort of stuff. When it comes to the internet and how people on the internet will really take cases and make public cases so, you know, outlandish and everything, you'd be amazed. I mean, I've worked on a few cases where they've gone quite mainstream, so I've seen the other side of the internet when it comes to that, and it doesn't help at all. So but my investigations are very different, and that's what the reading, you know, I'm kind of going to be explaining just a little bit more about who I am, what I do, and why I do it, and why I took on Nancy's case. So anybody, if you are interested in the report books, I do have the real-time remote viewing sessions. They are for the public viewing, but I keep them public for investigators to use in case there's any insights they can take. But you can order, when you go to my website, drkarenmikowski.com, you can order all 3 copies now as a collection. So, I mean, you can buy them individually from Amazon if you want to, but I'm kind of just selling, I'm sending them out and selling them as an individual, as a collection. You can, and again, they are investigative notes at the back, so you can sort of take notes and just sort of, you can use the report book to correlate with the video, the real-time remote viewing sessions. They're more interactive. There's a lot of information comes through, but obviously the reports are designed also for law enforcement, and obviously the FBI as report books. But if it's something you're interested in, just as an analysis tool or anything like that, you can buy them directly from me. Or again, like I say, if you want to buy them individually, you can just use there is a link, Amazon bookshelf, you know, on my website. You can just click that, and you can basically, wherever region you are in. Now, if you're here in the United States, it's free shipping too with me, but obviously if you want a signed copy, again, directly from me for the whole collection, if you're living outside of the States, I'll just have to add the shipping fee, unfortunately. But if you want them, the free shipping, then I would recommend you go to Amazon directly. But that's your preference. Now, it's been an emotional case, because what happened for me was it was the 7th of February 2026, 5:05 a.m. Again, the way I work with energy and how I use my parapsychological abilities to work on cold cases and missing persons cases, I was aligned with Nancy's energy. So that's kind of how I got involved in the investigation. Usually when it comes to investigating missing persons cases or cold cases, clients will request that same service I give, you know, for when you watch my real-time remote viewing sessions on any of my missing persons or cold cases, that's kind of what the clients get to. Now, it's up to them if they decide they want their case, the remote viewing session I do for them, to be classed as public, or if they want that private, they'll get a private link. But to view the session, and obviously they get a report too. They can use that report and take that to the investigators on, involved in their cases, or for whatever insights they need it for. And hopefully they can, there may just be information that comes through from my insight that helps just sort of move something in a different direction, or okay, well, there's clarity here, I understand that's interesting, we haven't looked in that. So there's many things that come through in my insight. I work directly with the energy of the victim, so and it is an ability, it's a mastered ability as well. And I do use a remote viewing method. So a lot of people don't really understand that, and they just assume it's something, it's the devil's work or something, but that's just ignorance. But like I say, you can learn a little bit more about me if you want to go to my website to learn a little bit more about parapsychology, how I utilize my abilities. It explains a lot more there. But that's exactly how I, when I think about Nancy's case as well, it was over. It was over at least, there was just multiple investigative sessions. I've never worked on one case, missing persons case, so much. So the fact that you've got to, it started at CCMP 76, 77, 78, 80, 85, 86, and then I believe it was 9, and then there was 90 or 91. That's the next section. So let me just go right down. So obviously in still missing, there is 6 separate cases completely, 6 literal independent separate real-time remote viewing sessions. That's an investigation basically. And then in still missing, there is a perpetrator's movement, because again, through Nancy, I was able to connect to the energy frequencies of the perpetrators. So I was watching their movement, I was following their movement pattern, and I was able to watch where they're going, what they're doing, and that's how I was able to follow their movements and the perpetrators' movements, which inevitably helped me find or connect to the location of Nancy, which is volume 3. So perpetrators movement, there is 3 separate cases at the CCMP 87, 88 and 89, and then I believe the final investigation that closed the case for me, unless anything comes through. Obviously analysis and updates I'll do in videos, but otherwise the case, my completion of Nancy's location ended with case CCMP 91. So they're all in order as well. So when you watch the videos, you can kind of, again, if you're interested in the way these reports are designed, you can sort of follow the case, and you can basically connect and use the real-time remote view sessions for the insights to correlate with what you're reading. Now obviously there's update videos and analysis, but due to Pima County's sort of stance on the way the internet was going with Nancy's case, they actually got a little bit tougher on so I ended up just sort of making all of those external analysis, rather than, because it's people's insights, it's other people's opinions. I kept that as members only. That's just sort of respect the integrity of the case as well, because we've all got opinions. Again, we can all have an opinion, we can all say, well, we think it was this and this, but that doesn't help the case, especially when it's still being investigated. So I wanted to keep that open forum for people, but without it getting taken down. Because one thing I will say about working on the Nancy Guthrie case is I got completely shadow banned. So YouTube or the algorithm or whoever controls and owns that site, they did not want, there are some people that are allowed to openly discuss Nancy Guthrie's case outrageously and everything, as long as it's making money for YouTube, obviously. But for strangely, I got shadow banned. I got shadow banned big time, and I noticed the pattern of it forming as I was continuing to really get into Nancy's case, and eventually I ended up. That's why I ended up turning everything into members only as well. So the only thing that stays up with Nancy's case is the real-time remote viewing sessions, the investigations for law enforcement, but everything else. So to try and again even offering an open forum to people where we can openly discuss it, I had to sort of make it members. So you'll kind of see that I've updated my information constantly about it. So just a few little notes of kind of when it comes to Nancy Guthrie's case. First of all, obviously I start with the author's personal message, which I do that in a lot of my books. I do not pursue, chase, manipulate, or attach myself to the energy frequencies of either the living or the deceased, unless I have been directly requested to provide my specialised parapsychological investigative services by the loved ones of the missing, the deceased, or by authorised law enforcement agencies seeking assistance in unresolved cases. For me, parapsychological investigation is not entertainment, fantasy, or performance. It is a serious spiritual and investigative responsibility that requires discipline, respect, emotional control, and ethical boundaries. Ooh la la. I do not interfere with energies without purpose, consent, or direct connection. Every case carries emotional, psychological, and spiritual weight, and I approach each one with the seriousness that it deserves. The only time I allow myself to enter a full investigative connection is when an energy frequency reaches me directly, which is what Nancy did. That's when it warrants one of mine. Those moments are rare, intense, and impossible for me to ignore. When that connection occurs, I document everything carefully for real-time remote viewing sessions, intuitive impressions, environmental energy readings, investigative grid researches, and ongoing monitoring of energetic changes connected to the case. Nancy Guthrie's case is what felt like an undeniable connection. The energetic contact first occurred on February 7th, 2026 at exactly 5:05 AM. From that moment forward, the connection was immediate, overwhelming, and persistent. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into more than 100 days since her abduction, the energy connection is never fully disconnected. Because of this, I have continued to honour what I believe was a direct request from Nancy herself to remain connected until she is found, or until justice finally prevails. This case has evolved into far more than a single investigation. Still Missing represents volume 1 of what I believe will become an ongoing crime and true crime parapsychological investigative series due to the depth, complexity, and the disturbing unanswered questions surrounding this case as of May 2026. So each volume will continue documenting real-time remote viewing sessions, investigative findings, energetic observations, grid search developments, and all unfolding updates connected to Nancy's disappearance. Unlike traditional investigative approaches that solely rely on physical evidence, parapsychological investigation attempts to explore the energetic imprint left behind through trauma, fear, violence, unresolved emotion, and spiritual attachment. While many may not understand this field of work, I have learned through experience that energy never fully disappears. In many cases, it continues seeking acknowledgement through truth, justice, and resolution long after the physical silence takes over. Every missing person deserves to be found. Every victim deserves to be heard. Every soul deserves dignity, truth, and the opportunity to rest in peace. Behind every missing person's report is a devastated family living in uncertainty, emotional exhaustion, grief, unanswered questions that never stop haunting them. My heart goes out to not only the families searching for their loved ones today, but also to those who have spent years, sometimes decades, trying to survive the pain of criminal investigations, unresolved disappearances, and cold cases that remain unsolved. No family should ever feel abandoned in their search for truth. No victim should ever feel forgotten. The purpose of my work is not fame, attention, or financial gain. My purpose is to listen to when others cannot hear, observe what others overlook, and remain present from energies that continue reaching out for acknowledgement, justice, and peace. Until the connection no longer exists, I will continue monitoring and documenting and investigating the frequencies that come through. Much love to the living, and my love to the deceased energies who reach out to me for help. I am always here until I am no longer needed. Butterfly. So, that was kind of just a sort of introduction to how I work as a parapsychological investigator. It's not evidence-based, and it's not forensic evidence or anything like that. So you need an open mind, unfortunately, and it cannot be used in a court of law. My insights or my investigative insights or skills or anything. Unfortunately, or any of the information I bring to the table is there. It's a resource that can be used, and then it's up to the law enforcement or the investigators to use their resources to decide, let's go and look in this area, let's go and take a look. So now the perpetrators movement, what happened with Nancy and still missing was she was not disconnecting, and I've got to continue to honor the energy. So a lot of what I was doing was a lot of grid searches down in Tucson. Obviously on the 7th of February I was connected with Nancy at 5:05. I was down in Tucson by 11 a.m. I just had to get in. I had to get into Tucson. I needed to get as close to her home as possible. I wanted to sort of see, obviously it was a little bit difficult back then, but had I been able to have access to the home inside, I would have been able to see her last memory. I would have been able to see what was really, I did actually connect and did a real-time remote viewing session inside that night a bit later down the line, but had I had access to the home back then at the beginning, the very early days, I would have been able to see the movements a lot clearer. I would have been able to see what was going on, how many. I was already feeling there was at least 2, possibly 3 anyway, right from day one. And I gave, if you watch the investigations and you read the report books, you'll understand what energy was trying to explain to me, what was going on, what you see, what happens with the energies after the fact. Once they pass over, they see everything. They see everything, what was pre-planned. They can see everything. They get a better understanding completely. So that is the information Nancy was now bringing to me after she was abducted. And I don't really need to sort of go into the investigate. You can watch my thoughts and you can watch how I feel about it. It's just it's not pleasant at all, and and it's heartbreaking for me because again because she's not let go in the nicest possible way. I don't mind when energy stays connected. They stay connected for a reason. So, but the fact that she hasn't let go, it's been an emotional roller coaster. Like I say, I've never really worked on a case so long and put so much time and effort and energy into it. But it was with perpetrators movement, I felt like she would not let go, because while she was remaining with the perpetrators, her energy was still connecting to theirs. So through her, I was able to connect to them and follow their movements, follow their pattern of where they were constant, because I felt like they were constantly moving around, not staying in one place too long. So with Nancy's help, I was able to really sort of stay connected to them. And there was one in particular, one of the perpetrators. I felt like I do discuss it more in the case, but I felt like he wanted to speak, he wanted to come forward and everything, but he just didn't know who to trust. So let me find. So this was focused on, again, you can watch the perpetrators movement video. They are all available on my YouTube channel. yeah, there was a corridor, an interstate corridor. I felt like I was starting to, there was this development of trafficking, organized crime. I was following the movement patterns of how these men sort of move around, whether they're trafficking humans, trafficking drugs, I was just following the frequencies. Even right down when I was in Tucson, I was just so guided to go to certain places that Nancy was showing me that they went to, that they were moving around. So I was following their movement, literally. I was following their movement pattern, and it eventually guided me to one particular triangle sort of corridor when I come to Nancy's location. But it's just so sad that it's strange. She was not letting go of my energy, but she was not disconnecting from theirs either. It's almost like she created a soul mission for herself, like, no, I'm staying connected until we find these evil. So here's the thing about Nancy's energy. She was such a beautiful soul, and she's a beautiful soul. There was so many areas that I felt like she was, just so loving and kind, and she was everybody's, I kind of go into a lot more detail about Nancy in one of the videos I have. It was a message from a family, but so emotional. But it felt like she was abducted into a world she couldn't possibly believe really existed. Like she was dragged into a world of evil by evil people. Like I don't feel like she was ignorant of the real world and how it really works, and but I don't feel like she knew just how evil and bad it was, and how evil and bad some people, because that's a choice as well, not a condition. I just don't feel like she'd ever had to experience, she's never experienced that sort of, that world, and she was abducted into a world, and I just think it shocked her soul. And it was at one point I felt like she created this sort of soul mission, like she needs this to be exposed. And that is why I felt like this case became something completely different to what I normally do. It became a mission. I feel like I was really working on Nancy's mission to let the world sort of see what she was seeing, probably during the abduction and after. Like not disconnecting. She was a very stubborn woman, but stubborn in a great way. So, and that's why it became really emotional. And because I've got the strength to, and I'm a truth seeker and a speaker anyway, it's almost like she chose my energy, knowing if anybody's gonna follow me and expose this, it's gonna be her. So me, and she was not wrong. So I'm honored. I'm so honored that she chose me to. She sought me out, and I hope that I've done enough for her. Obviously, law enforcement and the investigators, they're going to do the great job. They're going to do what they do, and they're going to do everything they can to bring Nancy home. But I just don't want people to forget. Like, energy should not be forgotten. When we memorialize people when they've passed over, but I like to make sure people know what energy does with their souls after when they've crossed over. Like, some will become guardians and everything. I just feel like I've been working on Nancy's mission. It's incredible, really, when I think about it. I don't know too much about her in life because I didn't know her like that, but do I feel like she was probably a real go-getter and such a caring woman? Yeah, and would have done anything for anybody. I just felt like she would give you the shirt on the back if you needed it, and being so kind and loving, even to a fault. Because she just wanted to love and help people. But we know, obviously, in the real world, people aren't that kind. People will take, and people are looking for opportunities, and and I just don't feel like there was a part of it that I just couldn't possibly believe people can be this cruel and evil and horrible. I really don't. And I feel like it just kind of shocked her soul a little bit, but I felt like she just went to full blown like mission mode, like, no, I'm seeing so much beyond the now, the here and now, and it needs to be seen. And I am incredibly, and if that even gives a family some comfort, just knowing your mother's a tough woman even on the other side, it's like, I just think that's something to be incredibly proud of. I think she's, I just felt so honoured to have been able to have been chosen to take on, like, work on Nancy's case the way I was able to, because it was great, because I was able to really utilise my abilities and God-given gifts for this as well. And I can assure you that woman is a woman of God, and she's very protected on that side. So I don't have any doubt she's probably taken the time going all the way over, because I feel like she's still on a mission until either the perpetrators are caught, until justice prevails, or until this evilness that she's had to, that we know is a real thing, is exposed. And I don't blame her, because I've got a tough soul. I would do that too. But I do that already in life. You know, I expose a world that she couldn't possibly have known. I sometimes feel like maybe she had conversations with Savannah, because Savannah would have had a different understanding, being in the entertainment industry, and, you know, having to interview, you know, victims and things like this of different crimes or traumas and things like this, or whatever she's discussing. But maybe she was aware there was a wicked world out there, but never thought for one moment she would ever be dragged into it, literally. Like, nobody would. Unless you're actively involved in that kind of stuff, nobody would ever think that they'd be dragged into an evil world that shouldn't even exist. Not in this day and age, but it's a multi-million-dollar industry, unfortunately, trafficking and kidnapping, and it's all. But that we have to leave that to the professionals to crack down on that. But one thing I felt that came from Nancy was the corruption. There was just some strange, there's like a high level of corruption. I'm not saying the corruption was connected to a case at all, but did she highlight that after the fact? Yeah, she brought that to light. So we've got to, you know, I always knew there was something wrong down in Tucson anyway, but I feel like because of Nancy, people have really started to understand Tucson a hell of a lot better than they did before. And I feel like there's some dark areas of Tucson that need to be brought to light and to be exposed and dealt with, basically. So we have to give a lot of credit to Nancy and a lot of love to herself for, you know, it's hard to explain. But yeah, I felt really honoured with Nancy's case, with just being, I look at her face now and I'm like, oh God, thank God you chose me. So, because I'm a tough nut too, and I'm not easily silenced, even though YouTube trying to silence me with Nancy's case of all things. Nobody else. Everybody else is allowed to reap the rewards and whatever and make money off her trending name. It's disgusting. Everybody else is allowed to discuss her case and everything. For some reason, I'm not allowed. I get absolutely shadow banned and shut down and everything. It's absolutely diabolical. So I'm not quite sure if I've hit a certain nerve or I've hit an area that was not meant to be exposed. And I thank God for Nancy that I don't care about being shadow banned, because when you speak the truth and you seek truth, you will be shadow banned. But we push through it, and we'll keep pushing through it. So the perpetrators movement, I felt like I was literally following this corridor. when you want to watch the video, but I just felt like I was following their movements, literally, almost to the point where I'm stopping my vehicle and doing what they would do, getting out, looking over a lookout point. But for me, I'm like, why? I'm looking out over a lookout point, I'm looking at the view, but to them, they're like, we need, it's almost like they needed hiding places. It was really, really strange. It was just, it's a great, you know, I explain it a lot better. I mean, I obviously have a bit of a warrior's mouth as well when I'm working on it in my cases, because when I'm connecting to energies, I get really emotional, and I don't give a flying flip-flop. That's how I feel, and I go on my feelings. So, blood evidence and forensic concerns. Once widely discussed aspects of there was blood found at the residence. While investigators confirmed its presence, specific forensic details were withheld, fueling speculation, obviously, as we know. The internet just went mad with that, didn't they? Questions arose: whose blood was it? How extensive was it? Were there signs of struggle or cleanup present? Could DNA identify the offender? Well, we now know that's come to light that the DNA they found there through the geological analysis investigation apparently is becoming a bit trickier. So that's kind of disappointing, but I'm not giving up hope on that, because that area of silence is just amazing. The revelation of blood shifted the case's turn towards possible violence, abduction, instead of just like one, you know, her going missing and wandering off. The blood was literally what set this investigation off. Yet investigators offered no definitive public conclusions, leaving the public suspended between hope and uncertainty. Forensics remains central to public interest. Obviously, we know we need to listen to the forensics, but with this case, it was strange. It was strange from day one. It was always very quiet. Like, there was just, you know, in other cases, even when they sort of go viral, it was just, there was always updates, you know. Here, not with this case. And even when there was the few updates, it was so vague. It's like, really, you know, you're not going to give us anything, are you? So, I don't want to give too much away, because I don't want to read too much. I don't want to spoil the book for people, the report books, because now this transition to volume 2, you know, having established the publicly documented facts, investigative timeline, known evidence that we'd already been aware of, the official circumstances surrounding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, this report now transitions into volume 2 of the investigation. The material presented from this point forward differs substantially from information contained within the preceding chapters, whereas Volume 1 focused primarily on publicly available records, law enforcement statements, media reporting, witness accounts, and open source investigative analysis. Volume 2 examines the case through the lens of my own specialised parapsychological investigative mythology. The observations, findings, impressions and conclusions discussed throughout the remainder of this report are derived from a combination of, again, real-time remote viewing sessions, intuitive perception, energetic impressions, environmental observations, symbolic interpretations, field search research activities, behavioural assessment, geological analysis, and ongoing investigative review conducted during the course of this case. It's important to understand that information presented in this section should not be interpreted as fact, verified evidence, or substitute for conventional law enforcement investigation. Rather, it represents an independent investigative framework intended to identify patterns, possibilities, areas of interest, the possible lines of inquiry that may not be immediately apparent through traditional investigative methods alone. Throughout history, various forms of intuitive and parapsychological investigations have been utilised alongside conventional investigative approaches, sometimes generating observations that later correspond independently verified information, and at other times producing impressions that remained unconfirmed. As with any investigative methodology, the value of such information ultimately depends upon its ability to correspond with observable reality and withstand objective scrutiny. For that reason, readers are encouraged to approach the material that follows with both an open mind and a critical perspective. The purpose of this volume does not present definitive answers, identify suspects, or establish conclusions unsupported by evidence. Instead, it seeks to document the impressions, the patterns, the locations, symbols, behavioural indicators, and investigative correlations that emerged throughout the course of my independent examination of the Nancy Guthrie case. Some of these observations are ultimately proved to be insignificant. Others may later align with information that becomes known. Still, others may remain unresolved indefinitely. Nevertheless, because these impressions repeatedly surface throughout multiple sessions, investigative reviews and field observations, they have been documented here for the purpose of completeness, transparency, and future comparison against any developments that may emerge as the investigation progresses. What follows is not an official investigative report, this is a record of an independent inquiry conducted through a combination of intuitive perception, field investigations, analytic review, and parapsychological methodology. I always get those two confused. With that distinction established, we can now move on to the findings. So this is where we start moving into the behavioural and forensic considerations, and then obviously the glossary. Then you've got obviously areas that I sort of focus on, and then it takes you into the reports itself, the cases, CC and P87. So the timeline reconstruction here for perpetrators movement, the timeline was between 28th of June 2026 to June 31st 2026. So that is the perpetrators movement. There's a lot more detail, but then Nancy's location it was interesting. I could just sort of see it, but I was also following it and everything. Like there was two possible ways to get with it within this triangle. Within the particular triangle, I was seeing this location pattern, this corridor. There was two ways to approach it completely. It was the strangest thing. So I do really believe that if the law enforcement was, and that's why I went to the state police, if law enforcement were to use their resources and looking within this particular triangle corridor, they may find Nancy, or they may find the holding grounds for what else was brought to the attention in the investigative reports. And that way, if you find those locations, you can find the perpetrators. But then if you find the perpetrators first, you will probably find they will, if they want to cut a deal, they will highlight where, they will say where Nancy is. But if they don't speak and they don't give up that information, if you can just find within this, if you can find Nancy within this location, you can find a lot more on these people too. So it's so that's kind of how Nancy's location was coming through. Just literally when I was doing the grid search, it's just sort of literally following the patterns and following the whole. Look, I was literally just. I felt like I was driving the same directions they were driving. One thing I'll say about this case as well, because when I openly discuss parapsychology, obviously in remote viewing. Now you've got to understand, remote viewing is a visualization. It's an ability. We've all got it. We can all do it if we want to. But it's also something that law enforcement, well, certain people in the law enforcement use. The FBI, they have their own remote viewers. The CIA does. This is common knowledge. You can research this yourself. This is not something made up. But the problem with this case, and I feel like this is why I was shut down a little bit, or shadow banned. It's a possible. I'm not alleging, but it's possible that I was shut down because I was so open and transparent about my real-time remote viewing sessions and how I was investigating it. And at the same time, I was actually being remote viewed by an FBI investigator who was remote viewing me, watching me remote view what I was getting. I don't know if they were just watching me watch. There's a lot of this weird, strange going on, but it started to feel like we need to shadow ban, not necessarily them, but somebody decided needed to be shadow banned, because that area of what the same ability and the same method that I use is what some of they do use too, but they're not ready to have that conversation with the public yet. Whereas I don't give a flying flip-flop. I'm not owned by them. They don't control me. They don't pay my wages. So, and I'm not one of them. I can be as transparent as I want. I work for myself. So that's why it started to feel like everybody else was okay to openly able to discuss this case. But because I was so transparent and people were asking questions about removing, people were wanting to know more. People were starting to get a different understanding of what's possible. But certain people were not ready to have that conversation with the public yet, and that's not my fault or my problem. That's their problem. But that's how it started to feel. So it was just easy to sort of like have me shadow banned. It's really weird, but what that did and what that's doing and is done has highlighted, has made people look in the direction, well, it's making them look even more, what have you got to hide? If she's not hiding what this is all about, why do you need to hide it? Why does YouTube need to shut it down? Why does YouTube need to, why? There's going to be more questions coming from that than just being transparent. If you've got to answer some questions, answer some questions. So it's, and yeah, and I'm just going to hit on this as well. So that's just something I was dealing with when it came to working on Nancy's case, and I'm still dealing with it. I'm still getting shadow banned. So what can we do now? The digital misinformation environment. I had a huge problem. I've had a big problem with this. I don't look. It's okay for us all to have an opinion, and it's okay for us all to go wild on the internet if we really feel we need to. But my God, there was just so much misinformation, and just the frauds came out, the charlatans came out, the content fees came out just to monetize off Nancy's trending name. It was absolutely diabolical. And you could see the difference between the people that were truly, like me as an example. Nobody paid me anything. I used my own money to work on this case. I never saw anything. Nothing. No. The information had to go public because that's the insights, that's the investigation. That's how I work, that's how I roll. But is the reach far? No, obviously. Obviously now I'm shadow banned, of course not. Did I make anything really? No, not even close, nothing. I haven't even broke even what I spent. So that's the difference between those that actually do it for the real reasons and care. So the absolute scum of the earth on the internet, just milking this case and making money from likes, shares and views. But that's also a YouTube problem and an online social media problem. Allowing it to get that extreme. But you've got to understand these social media platforms, they make money for advertising. So the more money you're making, the more cut they get. They're the diabolical ones. We've got to remember that too. It's not just the people being diabolical. It's these social media platforms allowing the diabolical behaviour to continue just so they can make money too. This is all about money. It's disgusting. And I had a real problem with that, and I don't care. So it really escalated. It brought, it brought people, it really showed people's true characters. I mean, I remember I remember when I met JLR, this is how I actually got some interesting followers, and they're becoming members. It's amazing. A small community, but these are very in tune people that understand what's going on and can critically think and everything. And I'm really thankful and grateful for them. But if it wasn't for Nancy, I wouldn't have met these people, and they would not be my beautiful members. But it was actually through JLR because I was made aware of him being constantly, reporting, and we'd sort of we actually crossed paths because I was going there to do a real-time remote viewing session outside of Nancy's house. But when I got there, I realised I wasn't allowed to pack the car up, but all my equipment was in the car. So it was a crazy, like, I need to get, I can't drag all my equipment from like 2 miles up the road. It's just not possible. So in the end, I got talking to JLR, and I was like, hey, I've noticed you're on the internet, and everybody's really sort of like, it's great that you're out here and you're rooting and you're keeping Nancy's name out here and everything. And then obviously he asked me what I was doing, why I was doing it, and I didn't have a problem sharing, even with his viewers. I didn't have a problem sharing who I was. But my God, diabolical lunatics on the internet. That's when I was. That's not him. He was very open-minded and everything. And I even spent 15 minutes setting up quickly just to see if I could get as much as I could, which I got a good start. But I had to finish it in a hotel. But my God, his people, his viewers were just absolutely. They shouldn't even be on the internet. They were unhinged. I was really shocked at how ignorant some of his viewers were. And I don't really care what people call me or anything like that, but calling me working for the devil and everything. I'm sat there as a minister and a parapsychologist trying to connect with Nancy, and these people are, I can believe it. I don't even know why I was so shocked, but I just gave them a piece of my mind. Like, you just need to get in your boxes, you little online demons. The run. It was so bizarre because they were like, remote viewing, that's the devil's work. I'm like, you don't even know what this is, but you're just throwing out strange labels like that. Was so diabolical. And but they were acting like the little demons. I tell you, there's just no accountability on the internet at all when it comes to cases, mainstream cases. And it's really sad because the internet is an amazing concept. It's great. We have access to so much. We can do so much. But the dark side of that is absolutely diabolic, and it's a people problem. So there's nothing wrong with the internet. The internet's not a thing. It's just it's a movement. It's functioned by people. So that really, and even just the media side of it was strange. It's hard to explain this case to be a very strange case. But one thing you will always notice about any case that goes mainstream, it will bring out the absolute nut jobs. There's no nice way to call these people at all, and I don't care. You've got to call them, and you've got to speak the truth about it. You're going to call them what they are, because hopefully they can just change the behaviour they were on. They're diabolical. They're absolutely out there. It's strange. They've got no critical thinking skills. They don't know anything. They're ignorant, and they think because they're behind a keyboard they can just do and say what they want. People forget when something like this is happening. There's people being traumatized, literally traumatized by this, but the people don't care. They are so absolutely narcissistic and selfish on the internet. It's absolutely crazy. But as long as they're making something at them, doing something, or they're getting it. But again, you can't blame them for that either, because that's YouTube. That's the social media fault. That's the social media platforms for allowing it. But they're only allowing it because they're also making money. So all as bad as each other. But is it worth raising, bringing this to the awareness? Absolutely. I literally have people like false psychics watching my content and redistributing it as their own. Now on the spiritual side of things, because again, man's a bit slightly parapsychological. I know how hard it is to be believed anyway. I know what it's like for my field. It's hard, and thankfully I'm a freaking scientist, and I don't consider myself a psychic either. I'm a parapsychologist, but I know it's hard for me to be able to, me trying to documenting it, the insights and everything. This is the only way I can measure my science and bring this data and information to the table. So if it comes to pass and something comes from it, we know there's something a lot more. There's a lot more to parapsychology and that area of spirituality. Then you've got these disgraceful people on the internet, these fake psychics, and just shaming. Just no wonder it's hard for us to be taken seriously. But that's the downside of that, unfortunately. So, but that's another reason why I started making my information, members only too, to try and combat that, because they were taking my information, redistributing it, and making a lot of money off it. And that's not just content theft. That's actually that's my intellectual property theft as well. They don't care. They're absolutely shameless, the people today. So nobody's going to do anything about it. Nobody's going to help us. Nobody's going to combat that because nobody cares. So we had to find ways to maneuver around these social media platforms and try and protect the integrity of the case and everything, and our own intellectual property as well. It's diabolical. But thankfully, none of my report books or anything really goes out until it's been copyrighted anyway, so that's one good thing. And it is another example tonight, Nancy's, because of these diabolical charlatans that people need to understand. These are the fakes and the frauds, and you need to stop watching them. I actually put out I was just in Nancy's location that goes out to the public tonight. There is a pad, there was I think it was one of my evaluations. No, it was an analysis video. I put out a false thing. I said something that was false because I knew once the fake charlatans get hold of it, that false piece of information I put out there is not even in the report books or anything. It was put out there specifically because I know these lunatic creatures, these frauds, are going to take that and run with it and make it theirs. But also because it's false information that I basically created from one of my observations, was so people can actually wake up and see. So there's a few people online that have been monitoring the ones that have been stealing my property. They know what sort of little code information to look for, so they can not expose them, but just sort of see, oh yeah, you really are a content thief and a fraud. Right? Because that way they can't continue to manipulate people and steal their money, because that's what charlatans and frauds do. I don't do things like that. So that's where, when it comes, so that's what I mean when it comes to sort of Nancy's case. Not only does she expose and bring to light a real evil area that we are surrounded, we're around, and it happens every day, especially when it comes to missing people and trafficking and human trafficking. But I'm telling you, I have so much love for this woman, and I have so much love for her soul. She exposed the worst type. Her case, it's like her energy in her case exposed the worst disgusting human beings on the planet on the internet, and I'm thankful and grateful for that. So yeah, so the Nancy Guthrie case, I mean, I hope if you are interested in the report, the sort of more report side of it, but you can watch all the remote viewing sessions there. They'll correlate with all. So you can get, like I say, I'm selling this as a collection. But obviously I'm not selling it to the public, because the public's not really that interested in this side of it. This is for This is for people that have an interest in the investigative field, that will understand it too. Because these are now part of the future. This is part of the science, my science. It has to be. They had to be printed. They had to go out there. Their information now. They're part of my science, parapsychology, and they are now archived forever. So they will always be available, even in the future, if anybody ever wants to look back at Nancy's case. If they ever want to look at it from a parapsychological stance, they can use my material. They can use my work. So, but it's not evidence-based. That's the difference. And it's not the same as normal law enforcement investigative way of investigating cold cases and missing persons. But it's a very important area, absolutely. So, I hope you was able to just sort of take something from this, and like I say, it's intriguing. It's intriguing, but you do need an open mind. You need an open heart, and you just need to have some critical thinking skills and all that beautiful stuff. But if you want to just sort of watch all of my other videos, you can just go to my YouTube channel to watch them. And again, if you're going to be buying the books, you will want to correlate. You'll be able to compare them with the literally investigations, because I have a lot more passion that comes through when I'm literally working. I explain a lot more as well. It's more visual. These are the the written investigations, but my videos, my real-time remote viewing sessions, they're very visual and they're very. So you just need an open mind for those too. Other than that, I will see you all again very soon.